Hello and welcome to another adventure here on my channel. Today I'm going to be reviewing the ColourPop x KathleenLights So Jaded palette and seeing if it's still worth having or if it was just all hype. So if you like playing with makeup and talking about the beauty community / industry just as much as I do, make sure you hit that subscribe button and notification bell so you'll be notified of all future content. Now this palette came out in I believe 2019 and I remember it really made a splash when it came out, but it's been a while since I've heard anyone talking about this, and something about it just caught my attention, captured my heart a couple months ago, and I was like, you know what? I'm gonna buy this. I waited, I thought about it, and I really still wanted it, so I was like, I'm gonna buy this. I'm starting the series on my channel worth the hype, and this seemed like a really great candidate. I am trying to only buy 6, maybe 8 is my wiggle room, palettes in 2021, and this was the first choice. This took the first spot, and spoiler alert, I'm really glad it did. I think it was a really good choice. Because even though this came out a while ago and hasn't been talked about in a while, I am so glad I added this to my collection. When I first posted it on my Instagram stories and was like, hey, I picked up this palette, I'm gonna be doing an after the hype video on it, so many of you reached out and was like, that is one of my favorite palettes. That is my favorite palette. You're gonna love it so much. I can't wait to see your review, even though it's 2 years late. And that tells me that, hey, maybe this palette did stand the test of time for a lot of people. Maybe I will love it. And honestly, seeing it in person, whew, gorgeous. Oh my goodness. I'd seen pictures, I'd seen videos, but there is nothing like this palette in person. What actually got me interested in it was I was actually just kind of on a KathleenLights binge watching a bunch of her videos, and I realized I had never watched her launch video for this palette, and I watched it and I was seeing her swatch it and I was like, oh, that is so much more interesting of a color story than I thought it was, because it's beautiful and in the pans these shades are beautiful, but when you really swatch them out and get them on your eyes, they're so much more interesting than you would originally think. Like, they look beautiful in the pan, but there's just something about these colors that she chose that is so unique and different and interesting. I have done so many looks with this palette that even though I have a huge collection, I have over 30 eyeshadow palettes, that I don't think I could dupe with any other palette that I own, any other eyeshadows that I owned, even combining, because there's so many colors in this palette that are just so unique and different and interesting, and just something in them is just a little bit tweaked to where they're not your standard typical colors. Like this shade I'm wearing today, I can't pronounce it, Ametrine, I don't know how to pronounce it, but this lavender shade that I'm going to use in the tutorial, this is such an interesting color that I don't have anything like this. Even though I don't own a ton of purples, I just haven't really seen this shade of purple in an eyeshadow before, and it's stunning. Also, this shade Tiger's Eye, so freaking beautiful and dimensional. It's like a brown, brass, gold. It's not a duochrome, but it's just so interesting and dimensional. And Tiger's Eye is my favorite gemstone, by the way. So I was so happy when I loved this shade so much, because I thought, you know, that's not a shade for me. I don't really use darker shimmers too often, but there's just something so special about this one that I love it. One of my favorite looks I did with this palette, and the look I was actually planning to do in the tutorial for a long time, because it was one of my favorite looks I got out of this palette, but at the last minute I changed it to this one, was I took Citrine here and put it all in the crease and on the lower lash line, and then I just put Tiger's Eye all over the lid, and it was so stunning. It was neutral, but it still had some pop to it, and it just looked so beautiful. My mom even loved it because I have her judge my eyeshadow like every day, and she was like, that's a good look. You should do that again. And I was like, I agree. Beautiful. So that's one of my favorite looks with this palette. These greens are stunning, but as much color as this palette has, there is a lot of neutrals. There is a lot of ways to do subtle, wearable, everyday type of looks, which honestly are the looks I'm passionate about. And I think that's why I never really paid attention to this palette before, because when you first look at it, all the color grabs your attention. You're like, it's blues, it's greens, it's a yellow. But really, this has so many great anchoring shades. I can get a completely neutral look out of this, or I can do a colorful look and tone it down with the neutrals. And there's so many undertones to play with in here. I can get a warm tone look, a cool tone look, a colorful look, a neutral look. It is just an endless playground. Honestly, I was waiting to do every single look that I wanted to do before filming this video, because that's the nice thing with After the Hype is I don't have to rush to get a video out, but I did so many looks and I am still so inspired, and there's so many more I want to do that I was just like, I gotta make this video or I am just never going to make it because I'm just constantly going to be doing looks with this palette. And that is the mark of a good palette to me. If I just never want to put it down, and honestly, I don't ever want to put this palette down. It is so freaking gorgeous. And I honestly don't know who would not like this palette, because if you're a colorful lover, you have a ton of colors and a ton of more unique colors that I don't think are easily dupable even in a really large collection. But if you are more of a neutral lover like I am, you have a ton of neutrals to play with, and you can spice up your looks by mixing in a little bit of the colors. And I'm not someone who usually loves a really purpley look, but I have really been loving this shade because it's a more neutral, wearable version of a more colorful shadow. And I really like that. So I think this would be good for people who absolutely love makeup and are really into makeup, whether you're a colorful lover or a neutral lover, or someone who's just starting out in makeup and maybe wants to buy a palette just to play around with and really try a bunch of different things, because like I said, you have so many different options in here and so many ways to experiment with different things to find out, hey, do I love color? Do I love neutrals? What do I like? What do I not? So beginners, pros alike, I think would really like this palette, especially because the formula is fantastic. This is the wonderful ColourPop formula we all know and love. It's blendable, it's pigmented, there's like almost no fallout. There is a lot of kick up in the pan, but since it doesn't translate to the face, I really don't mind it. You do have several different finishes in here. You have normal mattes, you have some mattes with micro glitter, you have normal shimmers, you have one Super Shock shadow and 2 pressed glitters in this palette, which pressed glitters are not eye safe, so they do recommend using those on like the cheeks or the hair. I personally don't have a problem with using pressed glitters on my eyes. Just be careful, decide if that's a risk you want to take or not. Personally, I don't like pack the glitter all over my lid. I'll just dot a little bit over the top to give a look some extra sparkle and pizzazz, but they are technically not eye safe. So if that is a make or break thing for you, there are 2 of them in this palette. However, even if you never touched those 2 shades, I personally think there are enough other things to play with in here that you don't have to worry about those 2 shades. Like if you did not get use out of 2 shades, you would still be getting your money's worth with this palette. Also because it is very affordable for such a large palette. I mean, it's ColourPop, so it's affordable and you're not sacrificing any quality with the shadows or the packaging. Honestly, this packaging is so beautiful. I love the purple. I love that on the back, all the shade names, they're kind of in gemstone format. And they really committed with this color story, and I appreciate that. When watching Kathleen's reveal video, she said what she did was she listed out all the gemstones and then picked colors to go with the gemstones and then adjusted the color story accordingly. She didn't like do this color story and then was like, huh, gemstones. She actually let the inspiration of the palette inspire the colors, and I really do appreciate that. And I think that's one of the reasons these colors are so unique. So most of the shadows are named after gemstones, but some of them are little puns and I love it. One of them is called My Precious. One of them is called, where is it? Geodude, Stoned, Royal Jewels. I just think it's a really cute and really fun palette, and they really stuck to the theming, and I appreciate that. So overall, I absolutely think this palette is still worth having. It was not all hype, and I honestly can't believe it did not get more hype. I know it was extremely hyped, but I'm surprised I'm not still seeing videos with this regularly on YouTube. Like, why was this not in a bunch of favorite videos still? I know it was in 2019, and most people do just what they discovered in 2020, but still, it's so good. I'm surprised I'm not still seeing a ton of content with this, that it didn't survive longer on YouTube, because I think just as a palette, as an item in a makeup collection, this is one of the gems of my collection. And I think it probably would be and is for a lot of people. Like I said, a lot of you messaged me and was like, I love that palette, it's one of my favorites, and I don't know, I think this could over time become my favorite palette. I still love the SoFX Revolution Extra Spice palette. That is still my favorite eyeshadow palette as of right now, but I can see over time just seeing which one I reach for more. I do think this is a better formula than the Revolution formula, even though there's nothing wrong with the Revolution formula. This one is just a bit easier to work with, so we'll have to see over time if this wins or not, but this is definitely one of my favorite palettes now. So that says a lot considering I have so many. And with that, let's go ahead, see this palette in action, and dive into the tutorial of this gorgeous look. I love it so much. This is the second time I've done it, and beautiful. It will not be the last. For the tutorial, I want to recreate a look I did a couple days ago inspired by these super cute 34-35 earrings I got from Shop Purple Banana, who is an independent artist I follow on Instagram. I really love her stuff, so I'll have her store linked down in the description if you'd like to check it out. And this look is a really simple, wearable look. It's kind of fun, it has some color, but I really like it. It's very my style, and you guys seem to really like it too because I made an Instagram reel featuring it and I got several messages saying they loved it, so we're gonna be doing that look today. It is only 3 shades, so I won't be showing off a ton of the shades in this palette, but I wanted to do something kind of simple, wearable, easy, my kind of go-to look, because you can clearly get a ton of very dramatic looks from this, but you can also get a ton of very simple, very pretty type of looks as well. So that's what I want to show off because that is my style. So to start, I'm gonna go in with the shade Amtrain. Yeah, I think it's Amtrain. I am so sorry if I'm butchering that, but it's this kind of lavendery, lilac-y purple shade. This is one of those mattes with micro glitters in it, but I'm just gonna be using it as a straight up matte in this look. And I'm gonna start by just putting this in my crease. And I'm trying to shape it a little bit into a bit of a cat eye lifted shape, but I'm not doing it super harsh, just to give the idea of a little bit of lift out in the corner. And I guess I was wrong, and I'm gonna use 4 of the shades in this palette, because now on a fluffy brush, I'm gonna take some of my Precious and just use it to blend that purple into the skin. If I wanted to take a little more time with it, I'm sure I could do this without the My Precious shade, but sometimes it just makes life a little bit easier to use a shade like this. And I'm just gonna go back and forth until I'm happy with the blend. I mean, it's never gonna be perfect because my skin is not near this color, but I can still get a nice soft looking blend. Now on a different brush, I'm gonna take more of that purple shade and run that along the lower lash line, and I am going to connect it up into the top of the purple. And again, I'm kind of making a little bit of that cat eye shape. I'm not gonna be super harsh with it, but I just want the idea of a lifted outer corner. And then I'm just taking a blank brush and I am going to soften that, especially up here because that's a little bit harsh. And I did smoke out that lower lash line pretty far down, a little bit more than I usually do. Now I'm going to go ahead and just run some white through my waterline. Next, I'm going to take the shade Diamond on my finger. This is the only Super Shock shadow in this palette and it's super pretty. And I'm going to put this over the entire lid. I am going to just double layer it to make it a little bit more opaque because the shade is a little more sheer, but I don't want it completely opaque. I want some of the lid to show through just so you can really see the difference of the lid into the purple. And I am letting this get up into the crease too. I just kind of want a soft wash of this shade. And then I'm just taking my crease brush. I'm not adding any more product just to blend out the shimmer a little bit. Now for the inner corner, I'm going to take this shade Pearl. And for the brow bone, I'm going to use just a little bit of my face highlighter, and today I used my Nomad X Stockholm Midnight Sun highlighter. This was actually the highlighter that made me fall in love with highlighting. And that is the finished eyeshadow. I'm going to put some mascara on, finish up the rest of my face, and be right back. To finish up, I used my Essence Volume Stylist 18-Hour Curl and Hold Mascara, my favorite mascara, and then on the lips, I used my Kylie lip liner in the shade Coconut and my Milani lipstick in the shade 61 Naked. And here is the finished look. Thank you so much for watching. Let me know down in the comments what you think of this palette. Do you have this palette? I know when I posted it on my Instagram stories when I first got it, a ton of you reached out to me and said I was gonna love this palette, that you have it, and it's one of your all-time favorites. And I can see why. So let me know down in the comments if you are one of those people or if you think this palette was just all hype. Again, thank you all so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.